Well, first conservative and Tea Party groups, now a top veterans organization, is concerned that it's being targeted by the IRS. According to a new report, the IRS is now requiring the American Legion to maintain records for all members across the country, including dates of service and the character of their service in the military. If American Legion posts don't have the required proof, they could each be hit with fines of $1,000 a day. We're going to check in now with Pete Hegseth, CEO of Concerned Veterans for America, to get a little bit more on this and your reaction. Welcome. Good to see you today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's talk about how veterans groups are classified by the IRS and the fact that they do have a special designation.
Yeah, the American Legion has a special classification. They're considered a 501c19, different than C3s and C4s, the groups that were targeted by Lois Lerner, and on the conservative side, Tea Party side. These are specifically veterans organizations, so new guidelines from the IRS about C19s means they know where they're going at veterans organizations. It's probably more than just the Legion, it's probably the VFW and some of the other more prominent ones. They're asking for additional requirements, additional membership documentation. Of course, these posts, Shannon, have been maintaining membership rolls for years. What I've found in talking to well-placed sources at the Legion, the posts aren't being told the new details that they need. So if an inspector and auditor shows up asking for additional documentation, these posts aren't going to have it because they haven't been expected to require it over the years. And then they could be slapped with $1,000 a day to an individual post in a community. Folks out there listening, they know the Legion posts in their community. They're not awash with cash. It'd be a huge problem. Yeah,
and Senator Moran, a Republican out of Kansas, has sent a letter to the acting leader of the IRS, Danny Werfel, asking a lot of questions about why this new policy, who authorized it, did it go by the IRS General Counsel? What's the purpose? It sounds like there are people who are taking notice of this, and there are a lot of concerns and hopefully some answers coming.
All the right questions coming from Senator Moran. Because why veterans groups? Why now? Why this additional documentation? And anything coming from the IRS and Lois Lerner's department at this point should be suspect. We've got enough going on, enough problems. Now we're targeting veterans groups. I don't know that it's an ideological classification. It's not that the Legion has crossed this administration in any particular way. It's likely more typical of what government and bureaucracies do. It's bureaucratic overreach. It's what else can we ask them for? Not thinking about the burden that puts on a post. These posts aren't, what they would have to collect is something called a DD-214, as a service record. These posts don't maintain that. Plus, if you took it from a service member, you'd have to secure it because it's got a lot of sensitive information on it as well. That's another burden falling on top of these posts. So the American Legion knows who their people are. The IRS knows they know who their people are. And for whatever reason, they've decided to slap on new regulations without telling the posts about it. I hope Senator Moran and others jump on this bandwagon and beat it back quickly.
Well, and the president, in speaking to the initial crisis that came out of the IRS and the fact that there were admissions that certain groups with certain names and terminology and terms were targeted, at that point the president said that any kind of targeting was inexcusable. He said he was angry. Every American had a right to be angry. If there was any potential targeting, would you expect he'd weigh in on something like this?
Probably not. He likes to weigh in on things he feels either compelled to weigh in on or he's particularly interested in on this. I don't see it happening. He only spoke about the VA backlog, which we've talked about quite a bit, after months and months and months of public outcry because he didn't want to own up to it. So the chances of him talking about the targeting of American Legion posts is 0 to -0. He's not going to want to engage on it. And, you know, these groups, these are patriotic organizations, Shannon. We know what the Tea Party groups were targeted for. Patriotism, God and country. That's what the American Legion does. I've been a 10-year member. Love it. I hope it's not ideological in nature, and it would be wonderful to see the president step out on it, but I'm not holding my breath.
Well, we'll see if Senator Moran gets a response to his questions or if we hear anything from the White House. Pete, thank you for your service to this country and for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.